She told the cops. He pushed me. I want to press charges. I stayed silent. Her story crumbled when my lawyer showed the officer the time-stamped footage from the neighbor's doorbell cam. She didn't know was recording. I, 34 male, am sitting in my living room typing this, while my ex-girlfriend's stuff sits in trash bags by my front door. Still processing what happened 3 days ago. Never thought Melissa, 31, would stoop this low, but here we are. We'd been together for about 2 years. She moved into my townhouse 6 months ago. Things had been rocky lately, mainly because she quit her job 4 months back to focus on her wellness journey and expected me to cover everything, not just rent and utilities, but her yoga classes, organic groceries, supplements, the works. When I suggested she maybe look for part-time work at least, she'd accuse me of not supporting her mental health. The breaking point came last Tuesday. I found out she'd been using my credit card, she had the number for emergencies, to fund her friend Cassie's healing retreat business, basically throwing money at some MLM wellness scam. We're talking $3,200 over 2 months. When I confronted her, she said I was being spiritually closed-minded and that this was an investment in our future prosperity. I told her we were done. Pack your stuff, find somewhere else to live. She laughed, actually laughed and said, "You can't just kick me out, I have rights." I gave her 30 days written notice as required. Thought that would be the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. 3 days ago, Thursday evening around 7 p.m., she started an argument about the notice. Stood in my doorway while I was trying to watch the game, going on about tenant rights and how I was emotionally abusing her by asking her to leave. I got up to go to the kitchen, told her we could discuss it later when she was calmer. That's when she followed me, screaming about how I was dismissing her feelings. I grabbed my keys and headed for the front door, just needed to get out and let her cool down. She rushed in front of me, blocking the door, yelling that I wasn't going to walk away from her. I said, "Melissa, move, I'm going for a drive." She planted herself harder against the door. "No, you're gonna listen to me." I gently tried to move past her, didn't touch her, just tried to squeeze by. She suddenly screamed, "Don't push me," and threw herself backwards, landing on her ass in the doorway. Then, and I swear this was like watching a performance, she started crying and pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police. You assaulted me." I just stood there, didn't say another word, went back to my living room and sat down. She kept screaming, "He pushed me, he attacked me." While on the phone with 911, cops showed up about 15 minutes later. 2 officers. Melissa ran to them immediately, tears streaming, showing them her injured wrist that she apparently hurt when she threw herself down. Going on about how I shoved her, how she's terrified of me, how this isn't the first time I've been violent. The officers separated us. One took her outside, one stayed with me. I stayed completely calm and said, "Officer, I'd like to call my lawyer before I make any statement." He nodded, said that was my right. While Melissa was outside giving her dramatic statement to the other officer, I called my buddy Derek, who's a criminal defense attorney. He said he'd be there in 20 minutes and told me to not say a single word until he arrived. Derek showed up and asked to speak with the officers. Then he dropped the bomb. "Officers, before we proceed, you should know that my client's neighbor has a Ring doorbell that covers the shared walkway and front door area. I'd like to request that footage be reviewed before any arrests are made." Melissa's face went white. She had no idea about my neighbor Tom's doorbell cam. He'd installed it like 2 months ago after some package thefts in the area. The angle perfectly captured my front door and the walkway. The officers said they'd need to get the footage formally, but Derek already had Tom's permission. Tom's a solid dude. Immediately agreed to help when Derek knocked on his door. We all went to Tom's, and he pulled up the footage on his phone. Crystal clear video. It showed everything. Me trying to leave calmly, her blocking the door, me trying to move past without touching her, her dramatically throwing herself backward while screaming, even caught her checking her phone camera angle before calling 911. The officer reviewing it actually said, "Well, that's interesting." They went back outside to talk to Melissa. I could hear her voice getting higher and more desperate. "That video doesn't show everything. He pushed me before that. The angle is wrong." The officers came back in. The senior one looked at me and said, "Sir, we're not going to be filing any charges against you. However," he looked at Derek, "your client may want to consider filing charges for false reporting." Melissa was given a warning about filing false police reports. She went ballistic, started screaming about how the system protects abusers, how they'd hear from her lawyer, how this was a conspiracy against her. The officers told her to calm down or she'd be arrested for disorderly conduct. She stormed back into my house, slammed the door to the guest room where she'd been staying. Derek stayed after the cops left, told me to document everything, back up all texts, and file for an immediate restraining order in the morning. Also suggested I change the locks the second she's out. That was Thursday night. Friday morning, I filed for the restraining order based on her false accusation and attempt to have me arrested. Judge granted a temporary order requiring her to leave immediately. She was served Friday afternoon. Had to pack her stuff while an officer supervised. The whole time going on about how I'm ruining her life, how she has nowhere to go, how karma would get me. Her stuff is still in bags by my door. She has until tomorrow to pick them up. Officer said I had to give her reasonable time to collect her belongings with police escort. The entitlement is insane. She tried to get me arrested on false charges and somehow I'm still the bad guy in her mind. We'll update when she comes for her stuff. Something tells me this isn't over. Update 1, holy hell, you guys called it. This definitely wasn't over. Melissa came to get her stuff on Sunday with a police escort like planned, but not before she pulled some stunts that honestly have me shaking my head. First, Saturday morning, the day before pickup, I get a call from my landlord. Melissa had contacted him claiming I was illegally evicting her and that she had tenant rights. She told him she'd been paying rent, complete lie, never paid a dime, and that I was abusing her. Landlord was confused because, well, I own the townhouse. I bought it 5 years ago. He's not my landlord. He's my neighbor who owns the unit next door. She apparently found his number in my contacts, labeled Jim, neighbor landlord, because he helped me when I was learning about property management, and just assumed. Jim called me laughing but also concerned. "Dude, your ex just tried to convince me to evict you from your own house." I explained the situation and he said he'd be happy to provide a statement if needed. Then Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rings. It's Cassie, Melissa's wellness guru friend. She's standing there with sage bundles and crystals. I kid you not. Says she's here to cleanse the negative energy and collect Melissa's sacred items. I told her Melissa could get her stuff tomorrow with the police escort as arranged. Cassie then tries to push past me, saying I have no right to keep Melissa's spiritual tools hostage. I blocked the doorway and told her to leave or I'd call the cops. She actually tried to blow sage smoke in my face while chanting something about toxic masculinity. I just closed the door. She stood outside for 20 minutes cleansing my aura from the porch. Sunday arrives. Melissa shows up with the officer and her mother. Denise, late 50s, who I'd met maybe 3 times and seemed normal enough. Boy, was I wrong about that. While Melissa is packing her stuff under supervision, Denise corners me in my own kitchen. Starts going on about how I've damaged her daughter's spirit and that I need to make this right. I ask what she means. 3 months rent minimum. She needs time to heal from your abuse and find proper housing that aligns with her chakras. I actually laughed. Your daughter tried to have me falsely arrested. She's lucky I'm not pressing charges. Denise's mask drops. You recorded her without consent. That's illegal. My daughter is consulting with attorneys about invasion of privacy. I pulled out my phone and showed her the state law Derek had sent me. We're in a one-party consent state for recording in public areas, and the doorbell cam was my neighbor's property recording a shared walkway. Completely legal. She sputtered something about technicalities, and then said the most entitled thing yet. A real man would take care of a woman in need regardless of circumstances. You're going to regret not helping Melissa. The officer supervising actually intervened at this point. Ma'am, are you threatening this man? Denise backpedaled fast. No, I'm just saying karma, you know. Meanwhile, Melissa was in the guest room apparently trying to take things that weren't hers. The officer had to keep reminding her that the TV, the artwork, and the meditation cushions I bought were not her property. She kept saying, "But I use them. They have my energy." The best part? She tried to take my coffee maker, a $400 espresso machine I bought 2 years before I met her. Claimed it was a gift to us from her spiritual advisor. The officer asked her for proof of purchase. She said spiritual gifts don't come with receipts. The officer, completely deadpan, "Then it stays." Took her 3 hours to pack what should have taken 45 minutes because she kept arguing about every single item. Tried to claim my Bluetooth speakers were hers because she paired her phone with them once. Attempted to take my houseplants because she nurtured them with her presence. Even tried to grab my throw pillows because they'd absorbed her essence. Finally, everything's packed. As they're leaving, Melissa turns and says loud enough for the officer to hear, "You know, I could have said so much worse to the police. You're lucky I'm such a forgiving person." The officer actually stopped. "Ma'am, are you implying you withheld information from law enforcement?" Melissa went pale. "No, I just meant I could have, if it was true." "Ma'am, I suggest you leave now." They left, but not before Denise shouted from the car that I was spiritually bankrupt and would die alone with my material possessions. That evening, I get a text from an unknown number. "It's Melissa from a new phone. You think you won, but the universe keeps score. That house will never feel like home without my energy. I cleansed it for 2 years and now it's just a hollow shell. Also owe me for emotional labor, calculating my invoice." I didn't respond. Derek told me to keep everything and not engage. Monday morning, she actually sent an invoice via email. Emotional labor, 2 years at $50 an hour for 4 hours daily equals $146,000. Spiritual cleansing of property equals $5,000. Loss of spiritual sanctuary equals $10,000. Trauma from forced relocation, $25,000. Energy healing needed from abuse equals $15,000. Total due, $201,000. Derek laughed so hard when I forwarded it to him that his assistant thought he was having a medical episode. But then Tuesday, things got darker. Update 2. The invoice was apparently just the warm-up. Melissa went full nuclear this week. Wednesday morning, I wake up to 23 missed calls from my mom. Melissa had found her on social media and sent her a long message about how I was an abuser who'd thrown her onto the street. Included photos of bruises on her wrist, probably from her throwing herself down, and claimed I'd been physically violent throughout our relationship. My mom was freaking out until I sent her the doorbell footage. She was pissed. Not at me, at Melissa. Mom doesn't play when it comes to false accusations. But Melissa wasn't done. Thursday, I get a call from my boss. Someone had sent an anonymous email to our company's HR department claiming I was dangerous and had been arrested for domestic violence. Attached was a photo of the police at my house, conveniently cropped to not show them reviewing the doorbell footage. That cleared me. Thank God my boss is cool. I explained everything, showed him the restraining order paperwork, the doorbell footage, and Derek's documentation. HR had to do a formal review but concluded there was no issue. Still, having to explain this at work was humiliating. Friday was when she really crossed the line. I get home from work to find my neighbor Tom at my door looking concerned. "Hey man, some woman was here earlier asking about the doorbell footage, said she was from a law firm and needed to review it for a case." My blood went cold. "Did you give it to her?" "Hell no, she seemed sketchy. No business card, couldn't name the firm when I asked. I told her any legal requests need to go through proper channels. She got aggressive, said I was obstructing justice." He showed me his doorbell footage from that afternoon. It was Cassie, dressed in a blazer trying to look professional, but clearly the same person who tried to sage my porch. She spent 10 minutes trying to convince Tom to delete the footage, saying it was illegally obtained and he could be sued. Tom's response was perfect. "Lady, I'm a retired cop. I know exactly what's legal. Please leave before I call my former colleagues." She left, but not before taking pictures of his house and doorbell cam. That night, around 11 p.m., someone egged Tom's front door and left a note. "Karma for liars." Tom was more amused than anything. In 30 years of police work, this is the most pathetic intimidation attempt I've ever seen. He filed a police report anyway, adding to the paper trail. Saturday morning, the real circus began. I wake up to Melissa standing on the public sidewalk in front of my house with a cardboard sign, "This man abuses women and gets away with it." She'd brought Cassie and 2 other women from their wellness circle. They were literally protesting on the sidewalk, careful to stay on public property. Cassie was live streaming on Instagram, talking about standing up to toxic masculinity and protecting our sister from gaslighting. I called Derek. He said as long as they stayed on public property and didn't block access, it was technically legal, but he suggested I document everything. I set up my phone to record from the window and just went about my day. Made breakfast, did some work, ignored them completely. But my other neighbors weren't having it. Jim, the one Melissa tried to convince was my landlord, came out first. "Excuse me, ladies, what exactly are you protesting?" Melissa launched into her story. Jim listened, then said, "Interesting. I saw the doorbell footage. You threw yourself on the ground. Why are you lying?" The protesters tried to argue with him, but Jim just laughed. "I've lived here 15 years. Ryan's been nothing but a good neighbor. You, on the other hand, screamed at 2 a.m. multiple times about your mercury being in microwave or whatever nonsense." Then Tom emerged, in full retired cop mode. Didn't say anything, just stood there with his arms crossed, staring at them. The livestream viewers apparently started asking why a cop was there. Cassie quickly ended the stream. The best part was when Mrs. Patterson from across the street came out. She's 78, about 5 feet tall, and takes no shit from anyone. "Young lady," she said to Melissa, "I saw everything that night from my window. You're a liar and a drama queen. Also, you never returned my casserole dish." Melissa tried to explain her side, but Mrs. Patterson cut her off. "I don't care about your chakras or whatever. You're disturbing our peaceful neighborhood with your lies. Shoo." The protest lasted about 2 hours before they gave up. But as they were leaving, Melissa shouted, "This isn't over. The truth will come out." Sunday, I get a notification that I've been tagged in a post. Melissa had created a whole Instagram account called Exposed Abusers with my photo and a long post about her survival story. But she made one crucial mistake. She included screenshots of her texts to me from months ago where she admitted to using my credit card without permission and promised to pay me back. Derek immediately sent a cease and desist, and Instagram took the account down within 24 hours for harassment and false information. Monday, yesterday, I get served with papers. She's actually suing me for illegal eviction, emotional distress, defamation. Apparently telling people about the false police report is defamation? And get this, theft of spiritual property. Derek looked at the filing. It was clearly written by Melissa herself, not a lawyer. Filed incorrectly, wrong court, inadmissible evidence including testimonials from her spirit guides. He's filing a countersuit for false police reporting, harassment, defamation, and violation of the restraining order. The protest violated the order to stay away from my residence. He's also adding credit card fraud for the $200 she spent without authorization. She just handed us everything we need, Derek said. Her own filing admits to making false statements, violating the restraining order, and the credit card usage. This morning I woke up to one final text from another unknown number. "Are going to regret this. Cosmic justice is coming. Also, Cassie's cousin is a real lawyer and he's taking my case pro bono because he believes in justice for women. See you in court." Derek ran a search. Cassie's cousin is apparently a tax attorney who graduated law school 6 months ago. This should be interesting. We'll update after the court date. Still can't believe someone can be this entitled and delusional. Final update. Court happened. It was something else. Melissa showed up with Cassie's cousin, Brandon, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Kid was sweating through his suit before we even started. Derek later told me this was probably his first time in court for anything other than traffic tickets. Judge Reynolds, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, started by reviewing Melissa's complaint. The more she read, the more her eyebrows climbed toward her hairline. "Miss Crawford, you're claiming theft of spiritual property? Can you elaborate on what exactly was stolen?" Melissa stood up. Brandon tried to pull her back down and launched into a speech about how I'd stolen the positive energy she'd infused into the house and that her spiritual contributions had monetary value. The judge blinked. Ma'am, you cannot sue someone for taking your energy. Please sit down. Then we got to the illegal eviction claim. Derek presented the restraining order, the doorbell footage, and the police report. Judge Reynolds watched the footage. Twice. The second time she turned to Melissa. Miss Crawford, you do realize filing a false police report is a crime? Brandon finally spoke up, voice cracking. Your Honor, my client was confused and frightened. Your client appears to check her phone camera angle before calling 911 in this video. Silence. Derek then presented our countersuit, the credit card fraud documentation, the harassment evidence, the violation of the restraining order, screenshots of the Instagram harassment, the invoice for $201,000 in emotional labor, the texts admitting to the credit card usage. The judge looked at the invoice. Miss Crawford, did you seriously submit a bill for $146,000 in emotional labor? Emotional labor is real work. Melissa protested. Not when you're unemployed and living rent-free in someone else's home, it isn't. Brandon tried to salvage things by arguing the credit card usage was authorized. Derek pulled up texts where Melissa explicitly said, I know you said emergencies only, but Cassie's retreat is basically an emergency for my soul. The judge had heard enough. Results. Melissa's entire lawsuit? Dismissed with prejudice, meaning she can't refile. She was ordered to pay me back the $3,200 in credit card charges plus interest. $5,000 in damages for defamation, the Instagram posts and contacting my employer. All my legal fees, around $4,000. The restraining order was extended for 2 years. The judge referred the false police report to the DA's office for potential criminal charges. Melissa absolutely lost it, started screaming about the patriarchy, how the judge was spiritually blind, and that the courtroom's energy was biased against divine femininity. The judge warned her once. She kept going, saying the legal system was corrupted by Mercury retrograde and that she didn't recognize the court's authority over her sovereign spiritual being. Judge Reynolds had her removed and held in contempt. $500 fine and 48 hours in jail. As they're dragging her out, she screams, Brandon, tell them about bird law. Brandon just put his head in his hands. Poor kid. Derek actually felt bad enough to give him some career advice after. Tom sent me doorbell footage from the next week. Denise, Melissa's mom, came by while I was at work, left a note on my door. Tom grabbed it for me, with gloves because who knows. It said, you've ruined my daughter's life. She's a sensitive soul who just wanted love. The money you're demanding will bankrupt her. I hope you're happy. P.S. You're still spiritually bankrupt. I didn't respond, but Derek sent her a formal notice that any further contact would be considered harassment. 2 weeks ago, I get a notification that Melissa had filed for bankruptcy. Apparently, she listed me as a creditor but also tried to list the universe as a creditor she owed karmic debt to. The bankruptcy trustee rejected it and made her refile properly. Last week, Cassie reached out through a mutual acquaintance asking if I'd consider alternative payment methods for Melissa's debt, including energy healing sessions, aura cleansing, or spiritual counseling. Derek responded with a formal letter stating we only accept legal tender as recognized by the United States Treasury. Plot twist though. Yesterday I get a check for $1,000 from Denise with a note. This is not an admission of anything. But please stop garnishing her Starbucks wages. She needs that job for her self-worth. Yeah, Melissa's working at Starbucks now. My buddy saw her there last week. Said she tried to lecture a customer about the toxic energies in commercial coffee while making their latte. So that's it. I got most of my money back through garnishment and that check from her mom. The restraining order means she can't come within 500 feet of me or my home. My neighbors think I'm a hero for getting rid of the crazy lady who used to scream about astrology at 3 a.m. Tom and I grab beers sometimes now. Mrs. Patterson brought me cookies last week and said, that lunatic never did return my casserole dish, but good riddance anyway. Jim still laughs about her trying to get him to evict me from my own house. The house is peaceful now. No more sage smoke, no more 2 a.m. rants about Jupiter being an asparagus or whatever. No more finding crystals hidden around my house to protect me from negative vibrations. Best $3,200 I ever lost, worth every penny to discover who she really was before things got more serious. Oh, and according to Derek, the DA decided to prosecute the false police report. She's looking at possible jail time and fines. Her legal troubles are just beginning. Funny thing is, she was right about one thing. Karma did come. Just not for who she thought. Living my best life now. Peaceful, drama-free, and spiritually bankrupt according to Denise. I can live with that.